Hey, good morning. I wanted to make kind of a throwback video to the days before cell phones. And some of you who are maybe in your 30s do not remember a childhood without cell phones. So, how did we get our news? How did we find out what movie was playing? Well, for a long time we used the newspapers. There used to be like these periodical magazines that would come in the mail or that you could buy, or you would get the newspaper delivered to your home. And every Friday there was an entertainment section. And there you could see everything that was going on. And I remember this was maybe in the early 2000s. I don't have the year exactly right, where I came across some documentary or some picture somewhere from Japan where there were so many Japanese people. They had cell phones long before we did, and they were like in the subway. They all had their phones, and it was like looking up movies on their phones. And I remember thinking, why would anyone want to carry a phone with them everywhere? And why would you want to look up your movies on a little phone when you can have a newspaper? Now, I'm going to go way back to when we still had phones in the 70s. We still had phones that plugged into the wall. Okay, the first big advancement was you could buy a long cord so that you didn't have to sit next to where the phone was installed on the wall, because the phone had a very short cord, or it was actually, okay, let me go back. So in the 70s, the phones were actually attached on a wall. So to talk to someone on the phone, we had to be within, this distance, because there was a cord from the speaker to the base, but it was short. And so talking to someone required a place where you could sit. And when somebody called, everybody knew who was calling, and we had answering machines. That was a big advancement. You could get an answering machine, which was a machine with a tape that would record your incoming calls if they wanted to leave a message. Then the next big step was you could get a longer cord that would go from the base to the headset. So if you wanted privacy, you could go in another room, you could stretch the cord, maybe you could cook while you were talking on the phone. And then in the late 90s, we started getting personal computers. Somewhere in the 90s, people started getting personal computers, and they were these huge boxes that mainly just did a lot of like word processing and stuff, but you could get on the internet with over the phone line. You could get on the internet over the phone line, and it was called DSL, I think. And it would kind of compete with people who were also talking on the phone, because you were using the same line that the phone came in on for your internet. There was not a lot on the internet, but you could send emails, you could research some things. But the cell phones didn't come along till later. So if we were going to meet somebody, we would have to organize the meeting before we got there, because there was no way to reach someone once you left the house. You could stop at a payphone. There were payphones everywhere. There were payphones in parks, in restaurants. There were these kind of walk-in payphones on the street. So if you had to reach someone while you were out driving, you would have to park, go to a payphone. You need to have quarters on you, drop in a quarter, dial the number. You had to have the number written down, or you could call 411 and get the number, and then call the person and hope they were home and maybe leave a message. But they couldn't call you back because you were at the payphone. I got my first flip phone in probably 2003, 2004. And I didn't even get my first smartphone until after I got divorced. This was like in 2013. And my friend had a smartphone. She had Facebook on it. And she was taking pictures when we were out and posting it on Facebook. I thought, man, that's really cool. I want to do that. So I got a smartphone, and yeah, and the smartphone changed everything. Once we had the flip phones too, what became popular was for people to text each other. And it just really changed the nature of communication and changed how people spent their free time. Before we had um, before we had these phones and the internet, what did we do to entertain ourselves? We didn't have video games unless it was like Nintendo. You could buy like a Nintendo or like a handheld video game for the guys. If you wanted to watch porn, you had to rent a movie at an adult bookstore and put it in your DVD player. So the access to porn was very limited. You had to really go out of your way to find it. People would watch a lot more movies. Cable was really big, so people could watch movies. I think people also did a little bit more reading. Libraries were bigger, bookstores were bigger, and people left the house a lot more to go shopping. See, with everything being so on the internet and people using the internet to order things, stores like Amazon really took off, Netflix really took off. We used to go to a store called Blockbusters to rent our movies to put in the VCR, but then when streaming became available with the internet and high-speed fiber optic cable, we were able to just stream our movies. We didn't have to go to a movie theater. We didn't have to go to Blockbusters. So it was one less reason for people to leave the house. People used to read books. Well, now they can order them from Amazon. One less reason to leave the house. In fact, I even know people now who just order their groceries from online. So there are fewer reasons to leave the house. I'm going to segue into this to say that a lot of people are now working from home. Again, fewer reasons to leave the house. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it really has changed society, and childhood has changed a lot too. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, kids played outside a lot. Our parents sent us outside to play to get us out of the house, and playing outside was fun. It required us to deal with our boredom. It required us to play, and we did things like we made hopscotch things, and we played hopscotch. We climbed in trees. We pretended we were building forts. We played make-believe, played in the sandbox, on the playground, rode our bicycles, and had created a lot of imaginary life. Because the problem with watching the TV and the movies is it can stifle the imagination because we're passively pursuing entertainment. But when we were younger, we made our own entertainment, whether we played house or then later on, like making our own plays and recording them on cassette tapes, or listening to music and singing along with the music, because we didn't have a lot of TV shows back then that were good. So we didn't have the TV to distract us, and we had to go outside, and we didn't have all these organized sports for kids. And there wasn't all this unrealistic fear of kids being hurt by playing outside. The majority of kids who are abused or abducted at the hands of their own parents and caregivers, not by strangers. The stranger abductions are really rare. But once these news reports got out of John Benet Ramsey, which probably was someone in our family did something, people got terrified of their kid being stolen. Parents started keeping their kids at home, not to go outside. They started driving them to school instead of letting them walk to school. We always walked to school. I've always walked to school. All of elementary school, I walked to school. The only time I didn't was when we lived too far away and I had to take a bus. I took a school bus. We did not have our parents driving us around. Even in high school, I walked to school in the snow. So we didn't have all these organized activities for kids. I do get the idea of wanting kids to be busy, keeping them occupied. But the problem with all these adult structured activities is they do not require children to be bored and come up with their own creative ideas. Kids used to just play pickup games. Now it's all organized. I'm not saying that's wrong. I participate in that as a mom. But I question how good that really was, because the idea was our kids need to be well-rounded and have a lot of activities so that they can get into a good college. That's the thinking that was prevalent in the 90s. Well, now a lot of people are just dissing college because it's become not only really expensive, it's also become a place for woke ideology, where college is no longer a place to express that. College used to be a place that welcomed all kinds of ideas, okay? You, whether you're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian, that, I mean, I don't have any specific examples, but I remember there was never a discussion of we shouldn't discuss this. In my imaginary memory, any kind of political candidate could have been invited to any campus. You could question things, you could disagree. Back then, Republicans and Democrats were kind of friends too, at least outside of, like in their personal lives. But we've become so segregated that these colleges have become a woke agenda. Even the medical journals are full of woke agendas about climate change and inclusionary hiring. It's a medical journal. So this woke creep has really disintegrated like the critical thinking. And also I want to say one more thing about TikTok. A lot of people on YouTube are now posting videos where they're kind of showing clips from TikTok, and I do find them kind of interesting, but I'm not going to watch them anymore because they're really brainless. They're very brainless, and they're fluff entertainment. And TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, Alibaba, I believe. I don't know. They were, or they're owned by a Chinese company. And China loves promoting these clips of people just sharing, their everyday little fluff things, and it's not balanced out by researchers. There should be a balance of things on TikTok. Researchers presenting academic research, students studying, people sharing how they got into colleges, people showing you how to solve math problems, but it's all just people talking really fluff things. It makes the mind get it makes us dumb. It's dumbing us down, you guys. If kids are just growing up, scrolling on their social media, watching all this, they're getting dumbed down. In China, apparently, this is what I read once, and it makes sense. Their TikTok does not allow that kind of stuff. They're promoting on their TikTok people who make content about studying, because that's what the Chinese value. They value studying and getting good grades and being successful, academically successful. And I just think that for any parents, that the longer you can keep your kids away off a phone, the better. And I've read that these technology guys, that these high-tech guys, that they will not let their kids use a phone until they're way older, because there's so much negative information, not just dumbing people down, but kids are very susceptible to comparing themselves. And there's a lot of disingenuous content on the internet that can really damage a young person's sense of self and sense of reality, and things that they shouldn't be seeing. I'm very concerned about all the porn that is just freely available. Porn is something that should only be created by adults for adults. Like my porn stuff is behind a paywall. Just for fans, it's behind a paywall. So you can't see any of it unless you subscribe to the site. You have to be 18 to subscribe to the site. I do not think that people should be making free porn. It's damaging to kids. And why would anyone want just any random guy to see them naked fucking? Like, I don't get that, but you do you. You can make a free OnlyFans, but people have to be 18, I believe, even to sign up for your OnlyFans. Make a free OnlyFans. That way you make sure that only adults can see your content. I'm very concerned about young people having access to this stuff. We didn't evolve to see all this content just coming at us. The human mind is too overwhelmed by this constant stimulus that is not matched by actual real-world interaction. Real-world interaction with a woman. Any guys listening to this, I'm going to make a separate video on the porn for kids. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to stop there. I just want to tell you what life was like before cell phones, and I remember it. And we used to do I used to do things when I was bored, like stitching, felt stitching, gardening, house projects, cooking, reading a book. What did we do? I used to research things on the internet. There wasn't all this. I wasn't even on YouTube. Started some businesses. I mean, we certainly didn't die of boredom. And I think boredom is good. I think it's really important to sometimes feel bored because it makes us go, oh, what do I want to do? And I'm hardly ever bored now because I have YouTube. I watch so many YouTube videos. And by the way, everybody has like a secret habit that they don't want anyone to know. But my secret habit is watching YouTube videos. And if you actually live with me, you might be disgusted with me. How much time I just spent laying around watching YouTube videos. That's why I don't want anyone to live with me, because I do not need someone to shame me for just laying around and watching YouTube videos. But that's the world I'm in. That's the world I'm in. So there you go. Somehow it works for me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video. And if you want to share something that you remember about the days before the internet age and online banking and online shopping, drop it in the comments. Thank you for watching.